Governor Matawale's house. DSS seeks order to extend Emefiele's detention, lines up interrogators. Naira loses 76% value under defraud Apex Bank boss. AIDS workers arrested for cutting away National Assembly property. Speakership, National Assembly, Betara, other aggrieved aspirants to adopt candidates. Those are the major trending stories over the weekend. Now, let's get to the trending stories that we have for this morning. I have my papers here as usual. The Guardian, The Punch, The Nation, and of course, Vanguard newspaper. So let's get on with it. I'll start with the Guardian newspaper, and the major headline there says 30 years after, pro-democracy activists remind Tinubu of June 12 ideals. The story is on page 96 of the Guardian newspaper, and just on the front page, there's this pictorial, story. But I say story because you have the Nigerian flag, and then you have Hope 93 with, the late Kola Abiola's cap with his logo and all, and then just
MK Abiola.
MK. Oh,
MK.
what did I say?
We should catch him out Olawale Abiola.
Oh, yes, I know, but what did I say? I'm so sorry. Okay.
Don't worry, just move on.
All right, thank you very much, man. MKO Abiola, where you have Hope 93 underneath it, and just beside it on the Nigerian flag, we have renewed hope with the cap, or the significant, or signature cap. Yes, let me put it that way. Signature cap with signature logo of President Bola Tinubu just atop of it. And underneath it, of course, we have all, democratically elected presidents. It's been quite an interesting one. But also in that picture, we have the picture of Ibrahim Gbadamosi Babangida, who we can't, we can't take away his name whenever the June 12 conversation arises.
Yeah, no, the June 12 election.
Exactly.
Councillor.
And till today, there's not been anything. Nigerians haven't really gotten an answer as regards why. What did he see? What did he know? Or what does he still know?
He may never give an answer. He may not give an answer. He may never. I don't think we even need an answer again anyway. We've moved on. That's his legacy. I'm probably going to take it to the grave.
That's interesting. Well, 30 years after, pro-democracy activists remind Tinubu of June 12 ideals. Fuhad, we've always had this conversation. The moment the manifesto of Bola Ahmed Tinubu's came out during the campaigns at the general elections earlier this year, where he named his manifesto Renewed Hope. And everybody threw it back to, Hope 93.
Hope 93.
Yes, there were some tying-ins. And Fuhad, yes, we'll be playing the clip later on in our Democracy Day show by 11:15. But yesterday, when we were listening to the late MKO Abiola's speech or his campaign or his manifesto, as he put it, there were a lot of similarities. We'll say there were a lot of similarities to a lot of things that we also heard from the Renewed Hope manifesto. So, what would be your own thought as regards the June 12 ideals, relating it to MKO Abiola and the expectations of Renewed Hope of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
Well, Sandra, if you on the political roundtable yesterday, we started out by speaking with Chief Ayo Padoku, although he says he's not a chief, but he's an elder statesman, so I would like to give him the title of a chief. And he said that, look, when it comes to the ideals of June 12, they, in their congratulatory messages to the new president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, have reminded him of so many things that he needs to do to properly honor the memories of the late MKO Abiola, and of course the memories of those that lost their life in the June 12 struggle. If you remember yesterday, he reminded us that President Bola Tinubu was also in the trenches with them during the Nadeko struggle. And that in fact, President Bola Tinubu was instrumental to the formation of PRONACO, a pro-democracy group that formed their own constitutional conference and has recommendations on how to properly restructure the country. He said the main agenda will be for the new president, if indeed is ready to honor the memories of the late MK Abiola, to restructure the country so that we can practice what is known as true federalism. That look, whatever we have now, and that's the reality, Sandra, and that's going to be one of the biggest challenges that will be thrown at President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He did not say any of that in his speech today. And that is the fact that, look, we are running what is called a quasi-federalism. It's almost like a unitary system of government, handed back to us, or handed over to us by the military government. And we have not really been able to do anything about it. The best that we have been doing is to pick and choose one or two areas of the constitution to amend. But if indeed we want to make progress and really honor the memory of the late MK Abiola, it is for us to address holistically our constitutional issues to practice true federalism. Sandra, until we are able to do that, practice true federalism, address our structural issues, devolve power properly, we are not going to make any progress. And that was what Chief Ayopadokun was saying yesterday. That look, even the president himself, when he was in the trenches with them, during the Nadeku era, the Pronaco era, he was one of the biggest advocates of true federalism. Now that he's president, they have reminded him that that should be his focus, how to properly restructure the country to ensure that federating units are able to function without unnecessary interference from the center. Because what we have now is a semi-quasi, completely confused kind of federalism that is not known to anywhere, any country in the world. It's our own creation. It is almost like a unitary system of government. So we need to restructure the country, operate through federalism, and then begin to create legislative framework to engender proper democracy in Nigeria. So for me, I think the top agenda would be how President Tinubu will address the issue of true federalism in Nigeria. And we are waiting to see how he's going to take that step.
All right, we have writers to that story on page 6 of The Guardian. Says Babangida, June 12 election freest, but Nigerian leaders failed to exploit gains, can't conduct credible polls. Election annulment was a tragic mistake, says Jerry Gana. Odumaki, Tinubu, an erstwhile June 12 activist, as president. June 12 apostles will not rest until Nigerians enjoy good governance, says Unitiri. So, as Nigerians commemorate 30 years of annulment of June 12, 1993 presidential election won by the late Basharu Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, the National Democratic Coalition, NADECO, Afenifere, and Yoruba self-determination groups have tasked President Bola Tinubu on how to achieve the ideals of the election, considered to be the fairest and freest in Nigeria's history. The election, which was annulled by the then military leader, General Ibrahim Babangida, sparked outrage, who insisted on actualization of the mandate that was freely given to Abiola and the return of democratic governance in Nigeria. Now, moving on, still from that, story, we have here that NADECO, through Pa Ayo Okpadokun, or Chief Ayo Okpadokun, to commemorate June 12 anniversary, also called on the president to implement the report of Malam Nasir El-Rufai panel, which recommended that the All Progressive Congress, APC, should fulfill its manifesto's promise of returning Nigeria to federal constitutional governance, adding that popular will is given prominent recognition in modern governance. Yesterday, when we were having on the political roundtable, when Chief Okpadokun was, saying certain things, he also mentioned, the importance of federal constitutional governance.
If I had mentioned the El-Rufai report, that the report is still available for the new president to look at, because he was also a member, an integral part of that, committee. That in fact, he was one of the people that ensured that that committee was set up, the Malam Nasir El-Rufai committee, to look at how we are going to practice true federalism. So he said that's the agenda. Incidentally, he was a prominent member of NADECO. He was in the trenches with them. And now that he's president, they are waiting to see how he's going to... Again, Sandra, a lot of the things we face today as a country are structural problems. Are actually structural problems. Because if the foundation is faulty, Sandra, you can't build on a faulty foundation. And that's why it's important that restructuring, the practice of true federalism, should be the top agenda for the new president. Like I said, we just listened to him a 17-minute speech, and honestly, there was nothing clear about the practice of true federalism, which we were hoping that look was going to be one of his major points in the democracy speech. But again, let's give him some slack. Let's cut him some slack and hope that, well, he may not have mentioned it in his speech, but it's important that we begin to set the agenda for him. Just as the way Nadeko is already setting for him, we have to practice true federalism, which he was a major advocate of before he became president.
All right.
Again, I'm hoping that maybe 11-15, we cannot actually get what Chief Ayokwadokun told us yesterday. I'm praying for Nigerians to listen to,
Yes.
He was very clear about this thing. Very, very clear about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. During the Democracy Day broadcast this morning, the president mentioned a line. He said, sacrifice a little more for the survival of our country. And the fact that, the president was also one of the, what should I use now? One of the supporters, or one of, the foot soldiers or the men on ground during the June 12, run. Yes, thank you very much. Struggle. Do you think that there's a whole lot now? There's even a lot more pressure on the president as regards, the survival of the state of the nation?
He has said that nobody should pity him. He demanded for the job. If you listen to his inauguration speech, he said, look, I don't expect anybody to pity me. I demanded for this job. So one would think that Luke is well prepared, and I'm sure that as not for a year, I can probably have the clear idea of what he wants to achieve. He's one of the disciples of the late MP Abiola. He was well during the June 12th. And he was from Peter, he was there, he was in the trenches, he knew all of these things. And one would think that, look, he understands what he needs to do as a president. This is an opportunity that the local Yorubas never got. The late people back then, all over the late stage, tried on his best to become president. All of his efforts never became president. Had an opportunity to
sorry, Fuad, maybe you should move a bit. Can barely hear you. The quality of the call has dropped. I can barely hear you. It's breaking up. All right. Well, you're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos, and you're listening to Trends in the Papers. And of course, the major headline on the front page of the Guardian newspaper says 30 years after, pro-democracy activists remind Tinubu of June 12 ideals. The story is on pages 6 and 11 of the Guardian newspaper. Moving on, still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, we have here 60 years after, reality of United Africa hampered by xenophobia, says report. And that story is on page 2 of the Guardian. So just very, very quickly, 60 years after the idea of a united Africa defined by free trade, cultural exchange, peace and security was born with the Organization of African Unity, a baton that was passed to the African Union in 2002. A newly released report has stated that the dream of a united Africa, though alive, is restrained by the challenge of xenophobia and lack of free movement. Well, we're still struggling to get Fuad back on the show, but then that is just looking at a united Africa and what the challenges could be, with a focus on with some reference to what happened in South Africa, what happened in Nigeria, what happened in Ghana, and all of that. But you can get all of the details on page 2 of the Guardian newspaper. Very important that we look back, we look at certain things. It says here that little follow through and lack of accountability. Even when African states sign agreements, there is little evidence that agreements are translated into practical plans and actions. Fuhad, a united Africa, the challenges and the unfortunate situation that it is putting certain countries in. What are your thoughts?
The idea of a united Africa was first muted by the late Muammar Gaddafi, the leader of Libya, the former leader of Libya. was the one that first called for a united Africa, where we're supposed to have an Africa that exists, for example, like the United States of America, where countries are seen or considered as federating units, to the extent that we're able to open up our borders for international trade, bilateral relationships. And the idea of a united Africa to Muammar Gaddafi was going to strengthen us the more, was going to bring us together the more, and then, of course, put the African continent there as a superpower of the world. But again, the reality is that the individual African countries have not even been able to arrange themselves. They've not been able to run themselves properly. Most of the economies of African countries are in the doldrums. African leaders have remained seat-tight. They've not even been able to engender proper democracy in their different countries. So if as individual units you are not able to run yourself properly, how do you want to function as a united Africa continent where everybody works together, runs the same democratic ideals and all of that? So it was a very big idea, a big thing in the mind of Muammar Gaddafi, but I don't think Africa is actually ready for that. And an example is xenophobia in South Africa, the fact that a lot of African leaders are seat-tight. Corruption is still widespread in a lot of African countries. Level of infrastructure is still poor. Healthcare is poor. Education is poor. Africa is still at the mercy of the Western world. You know, you see our leaders running cap in hand, looking for all manner of loans, aids, and grants from Western countries. So until Africa gets leaders who understand what is called Pan-Africanism, you know, the thinking of people like Nelson Mandela, the kind of thinking of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Kwame Nkrumah, those kind of leaders who understood what Africa was supposed to stand for, until those leaders again emerge to put Africa where it's supposed to belong, a united Africa will just be a mirage. It's going to be a mirage, just a mere dream. It can never happen.
All right, thank you very much, Fuad. Stories on page 2 of the Guardian newspaper. You know, when we're talking about, a united Africa, something came to mind as regards, the back and forth that we had between, former Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika and, the member of the House of Reps who allegedly said that the Nigeria Air, should be treated as fraud or as a fraudulent, transaction. And then some people came up with the fact that the relationship between Nigeria and Ethiopia may be affected with the bulubala, with the bubu yaya. That's what I wanted to say. That's going on. Or what do you think? The relationship between Nigeria and Ethiopia.
What relationship do we really have? Sorry. The relationship was just between Hadi Sirika and his Ethiopian counterparts. I don't think the Nigerian government got proper. Again, those were some of the things that happened in the last administration that make some of us continue to question the ability of former President Buhari to really go, whether it was hands-on, whether it was aware of so many things going on within his government. Because practically, one would think that, look, it was just Hadi Sirika calling the shots and taking decisions. So I don't see any bilateral relationship affected with what happened with Ethiopia here. It was a fraudulent transaction, allegedly, as stated by the House of Reps. It was covered in all manner of mystery. And even Hadi Sirika is already saying that, look, people were demanding for bribes. I sent a link to you yesterday, where it's even alleging that some of the honorables that are saying it's fraudulent had actually demanded bribes from him.
Because he tried to clarify that, Fuad. He said that the minister and his people, that he can't categorically say it was members of the house or members of the ad hoc committee or anything. That is just the man said my people. It's me and my people. So he doesn't know the people are his family members or his friends.
Okay, so whatever it is, standard. The reality was that the Nigeria Air thing was just a complete mess. And it's embarrassing, I must say. Let's just. I think the EFCC, the House, knows what to do. If there's any reason to, call in Hadi Sirika for questioning, I think they should just do that. But I think it was an embarrassment that we should not see again.
All right, story as regards United Africa, reality of United Africa being hampered by xenophobia is on page 2 of the Guardian newspaper. Also on the front page of the Guardian, we have June 12, Tinubu, admirers and critics. That is on page 4. Nigeria's democracy imperfect but has scored gains, says European Union. That is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Now, coming down here, still on the front page of The Guardian, I have here that the story that says DSS lacks power to investigate and prosecute Emefiele, says Falano. And that story is on page 3 of The Guardian newspaper. So very quickly, a senior advocate of Nigeria and human rights lawyer, Femi Falana, has warned the Department of State Services against mishandling ongoing investigation of suspended Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele. According to Femi Falana, DSS lacks the power to investigate money laundering. And your thoughts?
Allegations have been
Was declared
was that they were looking for, it was, that after all of that investigations of this case, if, for example, an agency that does not have the legal mandate to handle a case is the one handling it, if you I think that's where Mr. Femi Falana is coming from, that we should allow an agency that has the legal and constitutional right to investigate the case, handle it, investigate it, and then prosecute if there are cases against Emefiele. Because again, people have always questioned again. I'm sure Mr. Saka has always said this too, and I think by Mr. Curtis, that even the name DSS is not known to the Constitution. That what is known to the Constitution is SSS, the State Security Service. Where the DSS came from, they've always questioned it as, I'm telling you, Mr. Curtis said it severally, that what we have in the Constitution is the SSS, there's nothing like the Department of State Security. But that's not even the crux of the matter here. Yeah. It is the fact that, look, we are getting to see the DSS too much involved in things. They are supposed to be at the end, the back end, as a secret service unit of government. But now they are the ones helping to arrest too much out there. They are helping with elections. We are seeing them in all manner of cases. One would think that they are supposed to be secret. They are supposed to be so secret in their operations that they are not always out there. But again, I support what Femi Falana has said, that look, let us allow the EFCC take over this matter. If it's anything anti-graft, if it's anything about they have the constitutional powers to prosecute cases like this.
Thank you very much, Fuad. More details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Also, we have on the front page of the Guardian, daunting expectations from Shonubi as CBN house cleaning begins very, very quickly. That story is on page 6. I'll just run through. Folashodun Shonubi, a deputy governor, operation directorate of the CBN, until Friday will assume his new responsibility as the acting governor, with oddly divergent goals as the monetary authority faces the most daunting period of its history. Is there more that we should expect from Shonubi as acting governor?
Well, again, we don't have his complete profile yet. And if we understand that the CBN is supposed to be completely independent, take their own decisions and all of that, I think the first expectation will see how the CBN will react to what the new president has given them in terms of a unified foreign exchange market. That's one major agenda that the new president has given to them, how they are going to be able to unify our foreign exchange market. That's one thing. The other one will be accountability and probity of the operations of the CBN. And more than any other thing, the CBN needs to come clear on the issue of the Naira redesign policy. We have a December deadline that we are not even talking about. So, again, there are still questions on what happened at that time, what the policy was all about, how much was spent on redesigning the new note. How much notes did you really print, the new note? Because as it is, we don't even have any of those notes out there. So, Shonubi needs to come out to really reposition the CBN, because I must say that, look, the Emefiele era came with a lot of shenanigans that we have never seen before at the level of the CBN. That was the first time that we also saw a CBN governor who was so political. He was all out there. Of course, we saw branded vehicles. Yes, we saw branded vehicles.
Allegedly wanted to contest because he said he didn't contest.
Well, let's say allegedly, but there were too many things to indicate that indeed he was interested. Remember that there was a court case that initiated. Some rice farmers paid for a form under the APC. Yes. And so it was a CBN era that lacked accountability, transparency, and that independence that you expect from the apex bank of the country. So Shonubi needs to reposition the CBN, bring the accountability back, the trust back, the independence back, and I think he has a lot of work to do. But again, he's still acting. I suspect that, look, when the House reconvenes, because again, Emefiele is still suspended. He cannot be removed by the president until The Senate approved that removal, or that suspension, and then eventual removal. But when the Senate convenes, my mind tells me that look, the president will be, nominating someone else for that position, and then it could just be ratified by the House. So we could have a new CBN governor.
But then the dilemma of the Naira redesign policy is still hanging over a lot of Nigerians. We don't know whether or not the December 31st deadline still stands. I think that's one major thing that a lot of people want answers on as regards, the CBN. But more details on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Finally, from the Guardian, we have here, bureaucracy, shoddy preparation, stall Nigeria air certification in stage 1. Oh, when stage 1? I thought we already had a plane. We're still talking about it. Why won't you talk about it? Why won't you talk about it? Nigeria airplane. All right, on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper, we have here, besides court order, shoddy preparation by Ministry of Aviation has been fingered for the failure of Nigeria Air to scale the hurdle of air operator certificate. And it was learned that the controversial project had only passed stage 1 of the 5-stage mandatory processes before the hurried unveiling by former Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika, which the National Assembly has in turn described as a fraud deserving of prosecution. There's a lot of conversations, as regards, all of this. But then, just as you mentioned earlier, Hadi Sirika in an interview yesterday, he pushed back as regards that, fraud allegation from the House of Representatives, thereby indicting the reps member who made that statement and alleged that there was a 5% request for him and his people. All of that. That's a lot.
And our people, our politicians make those statements. Me and my people, me and my people.
Not there for it.
It's an allegation, though. It's an allegation. I just said it.
All right. But let me quote Hadi Sirika. He said, I record all my things anyway, and I have it very commit 5% of Nigeria Air, the owners. And I'm very sure they would have reserved 5% for him. 5% shared owned by the federal government will go to the market. Let's be fair. Naji did not say other members. He said himself and his people. His people could be his family members. It could be the leadership. He was being. I see a lot of sarcasm in
sarcasm.
Yes, in all of that, because he kept saying he and his people, and then he even went further to say that I don't know who the people are. It could be leadership, it could be members, it could be his family members. I don't know, but he said his people. So the back and forth has begun. Is there anything that we should look forward to as regards, this back and, because now, there's going to be probably a counter response, so there's going to be a lot of back and forth.
I hope somebody will not off the mic. That's just what I'm hoping now. That somebody will not off the mic on this. But for Sandra, you see, that is the situation of the country. We see, when we talk about a vibrant, independent National Assembly, that's what we are saying. Again, these are just allegations. Let's put it out there that, look, we agree that these are mere allegations. But we are not new to stories like this. Stories like this are not new to us, Sandra, where members of the National Assembly are supposed to perform oversight function as representatives of the people to protect the interests of the people, go out there only fight for their own interests. And that's the problem when the National Assembly is seen as a platform for all manner of political patronage and negotiation. You will not see any. I asked the same question last week. That look, why is it that suddenly the House members are just waking up? Were they sleeping before, when they were supposed to be performing their oversight function? If the allegations of Hadi Sirika is correct, it means that while they were supposed to perform their oversight function, they were actually negotiating their own interests. Maybe that's why we didn't hear anything from them all this while. The battle has always been fought solely by the AON, the Airline Operators of Nigeria, as a group. We did not really hear concrete things from the Assembly until now. And now this allegation is coming out. So we need to ask ourselves, the legislature should be independent, should be vibrant, because that's why they are representatives of the people. If the Minister of Aviation, for example, is doing something bad, other Nigerians cannot stop it. That's why we have House of Reps who are supposed to perform oversight function and protect the interest of the people. But here you are, the allegation is saying that, look, they were actually negotiating, demanding for 5% for himself and his people. I'm sure there will be counter allegations. But whether what Adi Sirika said is correct or what the House of Reps have said is correct or not, the reality is that, look, the Nigeria Air project was never about the interest of Nigeria, but about the interest of a few people, whether the minister or the people in the house. It was just, and that's the reality of Nigeria, the unfortunate reality of Nigeria, where people in government, in high places, think only about themselves, but not the interest of the country.
Thank you very much, Fuhad. Thank you so very much. But then more details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM, and you're listening to Trends in the Papers. Time check right now is 20 minutes gone past 8. We still have a few more minutes to go as we look through the major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. We're live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can drop comments there as well as the conversation goes on. When we come on Mainland Focus, we'll take them. My name still remains Omobola Sandra, and I have Fuhad Sahid with me via the phone line. Let's move on now to the Punch newspaper. Democracy Day, Tinubu hails MKO Abiola, promises to ease subsidy removal pains. The story is on page 2, but then we'll dig deeper into it by 11:15 a.m. when we have our Democracy Day special broadcast. So please stay tuned. Just by the masthead of the Punch newspaper we have here, DSS seizes Emefiele's passport, plans home and office search. Here we are, Fuhad. I don't know, but I really hope that something will come out of all of this parade.
Back and forth.
The Department of State Services has confiscated the passport of the suspended Central Bank of Nigeria, and it was also learnt that they may also search Emefiele's home and office this week. So as it is now, he was suspended on Friday as a result of the ongoing investigation of his office and the planned reforms in the financial sector. What did DSS pick him for exactly?
So, we see Sandra, that's one of our guys threw a poster to the media yesterday, and he said that, look, the arrest of Emefiele by the DSS is supposed to be the biggest issue in the news. And ordinarily, if this was a foreign land, you would have almost like an hourly report on what is going on with him. Because if the head of the Central Bank of Nigeria is arrested in that manner, the DSS by now should issue a press statement saying exactly why he has been arrested, what manner of investigation is going on, what exactly are the allegations, and what they are trying to dig out. Because again, Nigerians need to know. Nigerians need to know, because look, we are talking about the CBN governor, the apex bank in the land. But as it is, we don't have a completely clear idea of how he was arrested. I think the best that we saw was just a very short video of him, arrested, and of course, I think being escorted into a private jet by operatives of the DSS. And of course, the information that is now in their custody. There was this back and forth whether he was arrested or not. But beyond all of that, I would have thought that by now, we have adequate information on why he was arrested in the first place, what exactly the DSS are trying to dig out of him, what manner of investigation they are carrying out, and what exactly are the issues. But again, we don't even have all of that information yet, and that's why Femi Falana is advising that, look, whatever you are arresting him for, investigating him for, if it's on anti-graft and money laundering, then transfer the case to the EFCC that has the constitutional mandate to do that job.
Because for there's a lot of questions, that we're going to be. I'm trying to have an understanding or clarity on as regards the arrest of the embattled CBN governor, because he was suspended based on an ongoing investigation of his office as CBN governor, and there are some plans in the financial sector and all of that. But then a few months ago, sometime late last year. There was the story that he was wanted. The DSS, there were indications that he was wanted by the DSS for corrupt practice or
Terrorism
terrorism.
financing.
Yes, allegations
Terrorism financing.
of
Yeah.
terrorism financing, money laundering, and other economic crimes, were put up against him. So, but now that he has been arrested, has he been arrested based on suspension, or has he been arrested because we have questions as regards our monetary policies, or what exactly is what is Godwin Emefiele doing in the detention of the DSS? I'm still trying to.
Sandra, one would have thought that even the presidency, in the announcement of his suspension, would have been detailed on why he was suspended too. Oh, we are suspending him because of so. He has questions on so. Because the old allegations, we don't know whether it is the same allegations now.
Yes.
Because at that time, those allegations came up, and then he was downplayed, and we didn't hear anything again. So is it the same old allegation, or there are new allegations? So one would think that, look, at the level of the presidency and the DSS, they should come clear on why he's being detained. It's important for Nigerians to know.
It is important for Nigerians to know. If we have the CBN governor, there are a lot of stories, in this paper. But then the stories on page 9 of the Punch newspaper said they're looking into so many policies, which includes the Anchor Borrowers Program. But then more details on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. That's all we have from the Punch. Let's quickly move on now to Vanguard newspaper. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. This is Trends in the Papers. The major headline on the front page of Vanguard says, use June 12 as lesson to drive Nigeria's development. And that is coming from Edwin Clark, IBB, Atiku, Obi, Ghana.
IBB?
Yes, I read that correctly. Others.
IBB?
Yes, IBB. IBB. Ibrahim.
That's a man that has refused to apologize to Nigerians.
You say we don't need to
for annulling what. No, I've not moved on. I've moved on. I will only move on if he doesn't say anything about June 12th.
Okay.
No, given it is 100 years. If he doesn't have the honor to apologize to Nigerians, they should not talk about June 12th. We've moved on because now we have a new democratic experiment. But IBB, if he doesn't have the honor to apologize to Nigerians and tell us what exactly happened at that time, does not have any moral right to talk about June 12th or even set an agenda on it. That's what I'm saying. We can't move on.
Oh, no. Well, we have here riders. Tinubu addresses the nation. Activists protest high cost of living. Meet at Abiola's Ikeja home. Nigeria should be crisis-free, says Clark. Excuse me. Democracy in bondage in Nigeria. Incumbents must stop influencing polls, says Atiku. Gains of June 12 can deepen our democracy, says IBB. Annulment, a tragic mistake, says Jerry Ghana. Just very quickly, just to have context to what General Ibrahim Babangida was or is trying to say. Let's just quickly look through what we have in the papers. So because it's interesting to know that this is someone who was a major player at the June 12 elections.
Annulment.
Yes. So what we have here is, meanwhile, speaking on Democracy Day with NAN, General Babangida urged Nigerian leaders to explore the gains of June 12, 1993 presidential election toward deepening democracy in the country. In his words, I'm quoting, "The gains of June 12, 1993 presidential election have not been exploited by political leaders in succeeding elections in Nigeria. It was adjudged the freest and fairest election in Nigeria, yet politicians have blatantly ignored that beauty, the beauty of credible election. Remember, it was an election where Nigerians came out en masse to choose their leaders, irrespective of their cultural, traditional, and religious affiliations." He said a whole lot, but he decried increasing voter apathy, attributing it to insecurity. He said June 12 should naturally encourage more voters to endorse democracy and election. He said the country's democracy had gotten more advanced with more achievements, urging Nigerian politicians to work toward making it better. In words of General Ibrahim Babangida, who annulled the June 12 election in 1993. Well,
Sandra,
you have just
there are two
a
reasons.
few seconds, please. We are
Just,
out of time.
I'll do it in 30 seconds.
All right, thank
And
you.
I'll be a bit, I'll take it like a parable.
All right.
There are two reasons why God gives people long life. Two reasons. The first is either to put you to shame, or the second to put you to glory. I think there's a reason why God has spared Babangida's life, and that's where I end it.
So, all right, thank you very much. We'll have a much more, a broader conversation, much more comprehensive conversation by 11:15 as regards the dividends of democracy 30 years after. So join us on the station by then. Okay, that is all we can take, unfortunately. But very quickly, I just want to take the story as regards the National Assembly, because tomorrow is the D-Day, and apparently some people are already stepping down for some people. So we have here Shettima's last-minute push swing support for Akpabio Abbas, and we have the likes of Gaji and Co, who are stepping down for, Betara. There's a lot to look forward to of the nation. And finally, it's a well conversation. All right, please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The Broadcast Art Institute Supplementary Admissions 2022-2023. Few vacancies exist in the Departments of Broadcast Journalism and Multimedia Technology for admission in the 2022-2023 session. If you scored 100 and above in the 2022-2023 UTME and have 5 relevant credits and have not gained admission, you can change over to the Broadcast Art Institute, Lagos for National Diploma in Broadcast Journalism and Multimedia Technology. The Broadcast Art Institute is accredited by the National Board for Technical Education, NBTE, to offer national diploma programs in broadcast journalism and multimedia technology. You can visit our campus at number 38 Odofin Street, Igbogbo, Ikorodu, Lagos, or call the following numbers: 0806 149 9992 or 0703 713 1166 or 0816 587 1415.
Oh boy, this your cough,
Baba, don't drink medicine, tire.
Self-medication? No, nah.
Wetin I go do? Hospital money no be here.
When Airtel and AXA Mansard Health Plan dey.
That's right. With the Airtel AXA Mansard Health Bundle, you get access to a doctor, medication, and hospital cover up to 100,000 naira. Dial *141*44# now to select the plan that suits you.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Nobody wants to grow old with no money. No, no, no. Make your retirement a smooth journey. So be smart. Save a little, step up. Step up. Always smile and live up. Whatever you dream, go with NLPC-PFA. Oh, retire happy, PFA. Come to NLPC-PFA.
With our great returns on your contributions, we can help ease your transition to retirement when you transfer to us at NLPC PFA. Simply fill the quick form on nlpcpfa.com/account/transfer RSA to register your intentions, or connect with us on 01 448 2780.
Come to NLPC PFA.
NLPC PFA, creating a brighter future for you.
The 2022-2023 Universities and Polytechnic admission is here at the Eco College of Management and Technology, Eco City. Opportunity to gain admission and bag a national diploma degree is now available in the following courses: Mass Communication and Multimedia Technology, Banking Operations, Computer Engineering, Computer Science, Science Laboratory Technology, Performing and Media